Apple unveiled the newest iteration of iOS the other day during their digital event called WC or whatever the fuck. Normally I wouldn't give a shit, but people are hyping up the next iOS to be the biggest update since iOS 7. Holy shit, it's gonna look different. Which is something I tend to hear in the lead up to every presentation that unveils a new version of iOS. Big update coming, holy shit, you're not gonna believe the changes, when in reality all it ends up being is like a slight cosmetic job. Huh? The internet lies and clickbaits? Who would have guessed? Anyway, this next version of iOS does seem to be that big update. At least when it comes to appearance, it has a very glassy look now, which I've seen the internet tear apart and say, holy shit, this looks so ugly. Me personally, I don't know, it looks alright. I can't really formulate an opinion on this though until it's actually on my phone. But what was most significant to me is this next version of iOS will not be called iOS 19, it will instead be called iOS 26. Is this next iteration of iOS so advanced that Apple needed to skip past the 7 other iterations in between? No, Apple wants to make their OS names more unified. The next Apple Watch OS will be Watch OS 26. The next iPad OS will be iPad OS 26. The next Mac OS will be Mac Tahoe 26. And this got me thinking, do all of these devices really need their own separate OS? Excluding Mac OS, of course. I know why that would be its own thing. But is your average iPad user, for example, going to make the distinction that their iPad is running iPad OS and not technically iOS? On top of that, it doesn't help that your average iPad user is either 5 years old or 80 years old. And I know the justification. The reason why the iPad's OS is technically different is because the iPad has its own exclusive features not found on the iPhone. Like split screen, for example, though I would very much like that feature to be on iPhones as well. Or functionality with the Apple Pencil, and that's all well and good, but aside from a few exclusive features that the iPad has, is iPad OS really all that fucking different from iOS? If there was any confusion regarding these different operating systems, Apple kind of brought that upon themselves. Though, in general, the tech industry is no stranger to confusing fucking names. I mean, look at Microsoft. Windows 1.0, Windows 2.0, Windows 3.0, Windows 95, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. And then there's the Xbox. So you have the OG Xbox, which is just called, well, Xbox. And then what comes after the first Xbox? Xbox 360. Because apparently your average consumer is so fucking stupid that if Microsoft released an Xbox called Xbox 2, that would make the console sound less powerful and less capable than the PS3. So therefore, Microsoft went with Xbox 360. So if that's the case, why did Microsoft decide to call their third Xbox Xbox One? Fuck if I know. Oh, it's because it's an all-in-one system that is capable of way more than just playing video games. Yeah, did that stop people from making jokes about the name? No, it didn't. And going back to Apple, where's the iPhone 9? You went from the iPhone 8 to the iPhone 10. There's a whole iPhone generation missing in between. I know, the iPhone 10 released in 2017, which is when the anniversary of the original iPhone occurred, and it was the first iPhone to not have a home button and to have smaller bezels. And so the number 10 sounds more grandiose and not only better reflects that it was the iPhone's 10th anniversary, but also better reflects that this is a special iPhone with the biggest change in appearance to date than the number 9 would have, I suppose. I don't know, to me it's just pointless marketing bullshit at the end of the day. Now, in the grand scheme of things, does all of this really matter? No. When iOS 26 comes out, am I going to be so distraught over it not being called iOS 19? No. I just find it humorous that in an attempt to streamline all of their operating systems, Apple is likely going to cause brief initial confusion with people not that in the know when it comes to tech, even less than me, and they're probably gonna be like, wait, my iPhone was just on iOS 18, and now we're jumping ahead to iOS 26? What happened to the other 7 iterations of iOS? Anyway, maybe I should get myself checked to see if I also have OCD. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.